Welcome to AlphaTalk, where we discuss all things auto. From F&I to industry updates, AlphaTalk is here to keep you in the loop.
Welcome to another episode of AlphaTalk. Really excited for our newest guest today. We are lucky enough to be joined by Rob Morris. For those of you who follow our podcast, a lot of times you're tuning in to listen to the latest, greatest in the automotive space. But luckily enough, we were able to get Rob Morris. Rob, thank you for being on our podcast. For those of you who don't know, Rob actually is not in the auto space. Rob, NFL, I guess ex-NFL now, but played in the NFL for what, eight years. Yeah. 8 years. First round draft pick out of BYU. Really excited to have you on our podcast. Rob wants to share a lot about his story. I'm excited to kind of help hopefully get his story out. Incredible person, not only just an incredible football player, but been through a lot in your career, in your life. And I'm hoping that for our guests that are listening, there's some of Rob's story that'll resonate. And I know, I was fortunate enough to hear you speak a couple weeks ago in front of a group of about 200 people. And it was amazing to see how inspired people came out of that meeting, just kind of hearing, number one, your background, what you've been doing, and also like just your resilience in getting through kind of your the NFL and then what's happened after. So Rob, thank you so much for having us, for being on our show.
Excited to be here, yeah. And I am kind of a car guy in my own way. I'm obsessed with Formula One, so I think
perfect.
That's like the ultimate in cars. So.
All right, who's your driver?
Other than that, I don't know.
Maybe you're going to alienate some of our listeners now, but who's your driver?
I mean, I know it's, although he's kind of struggling right now, but I love Max Verstappen because he's just sort of cold and calculated and just but I'm a George Russell fan too, so as you can see, I'm a front runner, so whoever's in the
I love
lead,
it.
But yeah,
when you're a Super Bowl champion, you've been on a Super Bowl championship team, it's hard not to want to be on the first place, right?
Yeah, you find the guys that might get you a ring or a trophy and then you go with them. Yeah. And I went to the Dutch Grand Prix a couple years ago.
Oh, you did?
And Max's home race, so that was super fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, excited to have you on. Rob, for those of you who don't know about your career, I would love for you to just kind of talk through like your football career. Let's start there. I think that's the easiest place to start, and kind of what you're most known for.
Yeah, how far back do you want to go? I mean, I was sort of I don't know if it's the right term, but felt like I was bred to be a football player. My dad was the football coach, and he ran the youth league in our city, and so we were a football family. I have 3 brothers and a sister, and that was sort of all I did as a kid.
Yeah.
We always had access to the pad, so when other kids were running around, we were like in the backyard, full gear all year, like bashing
Even your
heads.
sister? Even the sister?
Not my sister, no. She was not.
I was just gonna ask, who was the meanest out of the kids?
But yeah, it was a massive part of my life, and for as long as I can remember, that's what I colored as a kid, and I drew like this is my dream. Like there was no fireman, policeman. It was someday I want to be a football player, and I want to play in the NFL. And so as I kind of progressed, it's funny because you have this dream, but as you get older, you sort of realize like, okay, I just want to be like a starter on the Nampa High football team.
Yeah.
And then junior year, you start getting phone calls, and you're like, oh, I might be able to play at some small college. And then you're like, wait a minute, I might be able to play at a big college. And each step, you sort of reset the expectations. I remember having a conversation with my close buddy, John Tate.
Oh, yeah.
Who was also a first-round pick. We played together at BYU, played against each other in the Super Bowl. Huh. And we were talking about, if we can just make it on a team and have enough money. I mean, he said, I want to buy a leather jacket that fits me and a big screen TV. And then you're a first-round pick, right? And then so it just, the finish line keeps moving.
Yeah.
Which is good and also can be kind of damaging because you never actually get to the place that you think you're getting to.
Yeah.
And for me, that had some pretty severe consequences, which we'll talk about in a minute, I'm sure. But
I think that's such a profound statement. I know a lot of our listeners are high performing individuals, and it's always. And I think that part of what drives you, right, makes you who you are and makes you into that kind of success also can be part of what
you're
tears
crazy.
You down.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and it's across the board. It's not. I realize now, looking at my situation, it's not unique among, like you said, people that are driven to excel at a really high level, and it becomes such a huge part of your identity.
Yeah.
That when you lose that, it's like, for me, I completely fell apart. And
right.
I see that. You see that all over.
Right.
And high performers, it's like something happens so that they can't do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I? What's going on here? So
I don't think it happens overnight, right? Like, I think that is something that as you kind of continue to try to achieve more, and you're doing the things that you like to achieve your life goals. Your whole goal was to be a football player, and I'd love to take a step back there and really kind of walk our listeners who might be able to get an inside look of what that looked like. You had mentioned you came from a small, Napa, Idaho. Mm-hmm. You were playing running back at the time? Right?
Yeah, I played running back, and then I was recruited to play running back in college.
Yeah.
And then I started as a true freshman as the fullback.
Okay.
And so it was halfway through my freshman year that, I tell this story in my presentation. Lavelle Edwards, a legendary BYU coach, Hall of Famer, he drove up to me in his little golf cart, and they had been trying to get me to switch to linebacker, and I was really hesitant. I wanted to play running back. And he said, Rob, he motioned me into his little cart, and he said, if you play running back, you'll be a good college player. But if you switch to linebacker, you'll play on Sundays.
Yeah.
And that was my last practice as a running back. The next day I was a linebacker. So, and that happens because he was someone that you just trusted so deeply. And I was like, okay, this guy maybe knows something that I'm missing here.
Yeah.
So I made that switch, and then the rest is kind of history, I guess.
Yeah. I would love to understand that a little bit. Obviously, I think we all can kind of relate when you have this ideal of what your life should be like, right? And I'm sure when you were a kid playing with your brothers in the backyard, I'm guessing you probably had some of them already on the defensive side. Usually it's little brothers on the offensive side and the bigger brothers trying to knock the crap out of him on the defensive side. But with that, you had this kind of formula that you wanted to be a professional football player since the time you were little. I imagine it was being a running back in the NFL was probably the dream, right? The fact that you were able to kind of make that switch in in a lot of ways, that's life altering. Now, it turned out to be the right decision for you, but I'd love to just kind of walk through, what was that thought process like the next day? Like walking into that linebacker's room, knowing that really you're walking into that unknown and you're leaving all of kind of your dreams the way that you had envisioned it behind.
Yeah, it was honestly it was tough, and then I left, and after my redshirt year, I still wanted to be a running back, so I came back wanting to do, and then I thought, well, maybe I can do both.
Oh yeah.
So I was trying to hold on really tight, but it eventually became really clear that a couple things. My girth was getting too big to be a running back. I probably wasn't fast enough, but I just had a knack for finding the ball and for playing defense. So that switch, I think, got easier when I started to play more, and I started to be like, oh, wait, you're pretty good at this too. So, and that became a bit of a theme over my career of reinventing myself and kind of going from a place of where things maybe weren't going as well, and then having my career resurrected. It happened to me kind of in the last couple of years of my career. So that was something that I learned, to be able to adapt.
Yeah,
that's a massive skill in life, in business, in whatever you're doing. If you're going to hit bumps, and if you can't adapt, and that's really a foundational piece of what I'm interested in. Resilience it's not. I hate the idea of bouncing back.
Yeah,
I don't think that's resilience. I think it's adapting into something new and improved, and something that you've grown into.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk a lot about that resiliency part. I think to kind of set the stage with that, I'd love to maybe dive into your story a little bit more. When we talk about the resilient side, I think I've unfortunately sitting because I am a huge Utah fan. And
that's unfortunate.
Our guests who don't know, there's a thing called the Holy War. I think it's one of the greatest rivalries in all college football. Rob was usually on the positive side of that, playing for BYU when I was during your playing days. So we were happy to see you leave for the NFL. I'll just say that. But with that, just going back to that resiliency and kind of making sure that you still were focused on that dream of getting to the NFL. That was your ultimate goal, even though it didn't maybe how you got there didn't look the same, right? And you brought this up with Lavelle, and we had Coach Jackie Sherrill on, who's a Hall of Fame Texas A&M football coach who actually coached against Lavelle, said he was like one of the most amazing people and human beings, and just, great coach. So you had that trust in him seeing something in you that maybe you're like, okay, he actually wants this dream for me, right?
Yeah.
And help get you there. So you've been at BYU, you become an All-American. Weren't you a finalist in a Butkus?
I was, yeah. And then going into my senior year, I got hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also another theme of my career. And so I got hurt going into I missed, almost half of my senior year, which was super nerve-wracking because I thought about skipping my senior year, coming out for the draft my junior year. I stayed in, then got hurt early on in the season. And so that was a major setback that I had to overcome. Being
that kind of finalist, and now you're kind of, again, reinventing yourself. Talk about that resilience. So what does that look like? Because there is this common thread, and we're going to carry it through the whole episode today. But you get injured, and then it's just fighting to come back, right? That's probably the ultimate goal, is just, I got to get back. I got to make sure that they understand, the scouts understand, like, this dream of playing in the NFL. I've already sacrificed the position I want to play. Now I am sacrificing it, or maybe not even getting an opportunity or a look to play at that level. What was that recovery like for you?
It was challenging because all of a sudden this is like your big moment, and you've been getting some hype my junior year, and you made All-American, and then you're up for these awards, and then you get hurt, and this. So you build back up, right? But you're watching your teammates out there, and you're missing. So there's that whole element, and it becomes a real drain, I think, on your mental health, because it's what you do. It's like, it's what I had always done, and when that gets removed, and so you work your way back. I worked my way back. I did well at the combine. I got healthy, and I think that was huge, that they could see me work out at the combine and run some good times, and fortunately landed with a team that had some decent players on it. I mean, I remember when I got drafted by the Colts, and I got there, and I was walking through the locker room, and I'm seeing Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Edgerrin James, Cornelius Bennett, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening to me right now? Yeah. And you realize quickly that you've gone from being a big fish in a small pond to a small shark in a pond full of big sharks. And so at each stage of, at least for me, the career, it was an eye-opening experience to see, like, the level of talent just it's increasing, and then you get in a preseason game and you're like, wow, everyone's good, and then you realize, wait, these guys are like third string guys, and it just keeps the intensity keeps amping up, so the pressure builds. The higher you rise.
Well, and Rob, you're also I've gotten to know you a little bit over this last year, and you're probably one of the most humble people that I've been around, especially somebody who's achieved so much in your kind of field of expertise. But I think it goes without saying, like, that's you. I mean, amazing coach. Bill Polian is the owner. You've got your Jim Mora as the coach right at the time.
My first 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and so they obviously saw something in you, even for playing half of a senior season and your combine, to say, this guy's worth the first round pick. We're not, they're not just going to. And I'll tell you, you don't have a team with those superstars and you just take a flyer on a hope, that works out, right?
Yeah, it was, and that was another level of pressure too, because I was drafted to kind of be like the guy that's going to help the defense catch up to the offense. Yeah. So I was penciled in as a starter as a rookie, and then I had a contract dispute, so I held out, missed most of training camp, and by the time I got there, I wasn't ready to play, so I started out as a backup player, and right as I was getting into the groove playing my rookie year, I tore my knee up.
Yeah.
And so I'm out again. So again, it was this like, okay, here we go. I got to rebuild from the beginning. And this is starting to become a theme, like in my life and in my career.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. It was a rough start to my career.
I mean, you going back, you talking about this goal of this NFL, and not only do you make it, which I mean, what is less than, I don't even know what the statistics are on people that make in the NFL.
Less low. I think it's
even of college football players, it's 1% or 2%. Yeah. Now, if you take that and you out of the general population, you're like 0.001% of the population, and then to get drafted onto this amazing Super Bowl contender team with these like young guns that are just really lighting the world on fire, and I think that obviously there was some change in ownership too that really helped. I know that you had a chance to play under Jim Mora, and then moving into Tony Dungy, who I think I've never met him, but just one of the most inspiring people I've been around. That's a lot of pressure for anybody.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure because now I'm drafted to play in this Vic Fangio style zone blitzing, fire zone defense, and Tony comes in and it's a completely different setup.
Yeah,
and it wasn't necessarily suited toward my style of play, and so you're learning a new system and you're trying to adapt the way you play. But Tony had a knack of getting guys to fit into the system, of getting the right guys in the system. So that was another challenge.
Yeah,
when you switch coaches, and then the whole organizational mindset. There's not two more opposite people than Jim Mora and Tony Dungy.
Practice?
Yeah. So I was there. I was in the locker room.
Oh, you were?
That was my second year, and I remember when that was happening, like one room over, Edgerrin had gotten hurt. We were struggling. That was my only losing season I've ever had in any sport.
Yeah.
Certainly in football. And I remember the playoffs and I think at that moment we're like, okay, the wheels are kind of falling off this thing. And then Tony was hired as the new coach, and he sort of started to rebuild things. So you're not just learning a new system, but you're learning a new way to a whole new set of values and principles.
Yeah.
And not that one's right or one's wrong, but Jim's was more of a kind of a hardcore, like he was going to get on you and he was going to yell a lot, and he was going to, there were times my rookie year where I thought my middle name was like a really bad curse word. I was like, why does he always call me that word? But Tony was a whole different animal.
Yeah.
He wasn't a voice raiser. He didn't curse. And so as a result, a lot of the coaches, the offensive staff all stayed, and some of the defensive staff, and you saw them also shift.
Really?
And so it wasn't just the head coach, but now you have all these assistant coaches who you're like, wait a minute, what? How is he nice all of a sudden? And because that trickles down in an organization, which I think shows just how critical the leadership piece is. It's not, you can't detach the very top from the workers.
Yeah,
they're all connected, and that culture filters down, those values filter down. So it was pretty cool to experience the difference between those two.
You were talking about your college career, about how mentally draining it was, even just to go. You've had injuries, obviously. There's also this change of position back then. That's a mindset shift. Now you're injured your rookie year.
Yep.
You're out again with a knee injury that's not it's gonna take a minute to get back. It's gonna be a lot of work to get back. And then you're also dealing with, because I think that's the thing that a lot of our listeners and unless you're in the locker room, you don't understand what actually happens behind the scenes. It's not just like learning a playbook. You're actually learning management style. You're learning, do I gel with this guy? Am I still going to be a fit based on this entirely new system? That look, this organization drafted me for this, and then they're the ones that changed the playbook, not me.
Yeah. It was, it's a unique, and I feel like each year there was some thing that you had to face that was new or that was changed, and in the NFL too, every year they're drafting a young guy to replace you.
Right.
That's cheaper, that's a lower pick, and so you're constantly like. And after 4 or 5 years, you sort of realize, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Like it's competition at the highest level. They're always bringing somebody in to try to replace you, and so you have to figure out, how to excel in your little niche area. And fortunately for me, I found a knack for sort of reinventing myself when things would go south, and figuring out how to keep my career going. I think when a lot of people who had experienced some of what they sort of fade out. And, so that adaptation was huge for me in my career.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about this in your public speaking, which, by the way, if you haven't heard any of, please, he's amazing. Book him. He's incredible. But you talk a lot about the building blocks of resilience. Yeah. And there's some of this, when we had our conversation, it was these kind of two pillars of trying to get through it, and then how do you maximize. Like there's this idea that you survived. That's great. Like now you're back, but really, how do you maximize that? And you actually have kind of a framework around the building blocks of resilience. I know that you start with kind of the physical, right? The nervous system regulation. Can we talk through some of those? The thing you've been through a lot, and our listeners will continue to hear more of your story. There is a very physical part of your comeback,
unfortunately,
right? But there's also you've done such a good job of also combining that mental side. And I know even through education, that's something that's been really important to you. Is that right? Can we maybe talk about that, the building blocks of the regulation?
Yeah. Do you want me to dig in? Do you want me to dig into how I came to these?
I think it'd be great.
Okay. I think this is a good.
I think your story, just anyway, of you've had a lot of adversity and injuries, but you were really intentional around your recovery.
I started to be. I learned how to be, and we were talking about this before. Sometimes it's hard for me to share some of this because I sometimes I'm like, oh man, it's I feel like I'm complaining and I've had all this stuff, but I started to realize that it's a lot of people can relate to. It may not be on the professional athlete level, but they can relate to sort of getting to the top and getting knocked down and building back up. So for me, that looked like, I was a starter much of the early in my career. And then, one of those young guys that they drafted that was way cheaper, he became the starter. And so I had to reinvent myself as a special teams player and a backup player. And then in my 7th year, we were doing really good, but we had this sort of devastating loss where we just got annihilated.
Was
on
that
defense.
the
The Jacksonville game.
Yes.
And so the following week I went into work, and sort of out of the blue, they moved me. I went in to talk to my coach, and he was talking about how I was going to play outside linebacker in this scheme, and I was excited about it because it would be a few plays. And the more he talked, the more I was like, oh my gosh, I think they're moving me from backup middle linebacker to starting strong side linebacker. And we have a Monday night football game, so I have 4 days to learn a position I've never played at any point in my career.
And I think for our listeners who don't understand, just because you're in the linebacker, it's a very different. I mean, the play calls are different. Everything is different, right?
Yeah, it's unique, and this is where the adaptation piece comes in, and the ability to kind of, because I understood the full concept of the defense, I could move out there and do it. But what was cool is there was no pressure.
Yeah,
I don't think they moved me out there thinking it was gonna, I was gonna be like the next Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
But I played well.
Yeah.
And we went on this magical run in the playoffs, and I started the last 7 or 8 games, and we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And it was cool because I had a sort of up and down career, and there was a few media jabs about me, and I got a serious knee injury my rookie year, and was I worthy of that first round pick? But so now they're saying, well, putting him back, that's a big part of why we went to the Super Bowl. And, Bill Polian said these amazing, I shared a little bit of this letter he wrote. And so I felt like, I was on top of the world.
Finally hit it.
Finally hit
got
it.
There.
And yeah, it was bittersweet. It was super exciting because that same year we won the Super Bowl, my wife at the time, we lost a set of triplets.
Yeah.
So it was this theme emerging throughout my life that you're constantly butting up against hard stuff, and it's how you react to it.
Yeah.
So we win the Super Bowl. I get a new contract extension. like, I'm coming back. I'm the starting outside linebacker on a Super Bowl team, a new contract.
And your contract was a long-term contract, wasn't it?
It was a 3-year extension.
Okay, yeah.
So it would have put me at 10 years. That
Yeah.
was my goal, to play 10 years. And 4 games into the contract, I blew my knee out. And I got carted off this, it was like on the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
And I rode that cart like 90 yards to the opposite tunnel. And that was the last time I ever set foot on the football field.
Wow.
It was just over for me like that. And so it was just, it's like a constant, you're constantly getting bashed around and having to relearn. So my career ends, and it doesn't take long before I completely fall apart.
Yeah.
This is another one of the building blocks that I talk about, is this notion of identity flexibility.
Yeah.
I had none.
Yeah.
So
it was all football.
When football was gone, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, this is all I've ever done.
Yeah. And I can imagine when you're going through, you talk about these, you've just hit the pinnacle, you have this Super Bowl ring, you really were, you've kind of vindicated yourself in a lot of ways, right? By all public standards. And then you have this horrible personal tragedy that anybody who's gone through any sort of child loss understands, like, how deep and how like there's just no way to kind of get past that, right? And so a lot of times what we do when we have personal stuff is we throw ourselves into our work. And you were at the pinnacle of your career at that point, right? And then to have that taken away just so abruptly, it's not, you're like, okay, well, at least I can, if I'm at work hitting people in, a legal way on the football field, I'm not thinking about maybe what's going on in my personal life and dealing with that. And then to have that taken away, it's like, all right, now what? What is, to your point, what does that identity look like?
Yeah, and so now we're getting to the root of the fundamental issue that a lot of us have when you're high achievers is I was constantly doing this rebuild process, and but it was more of an instinctual, it was like survival mode.
Yeah.
This is what I think you're referencing. I call resilience 1.0. It's like, it's really an instinctual, it's reactive, but what's unique about it, and I think what makes it hard, is that it looks like the rebuild looks good on the outside.
Right.
And you get a lot of pats on the back, and people are like, oh my gosh, you've overcome so much. A big part of my story was after my career, I struggled a lot with addiction and depression. My marriage fell apart. I was completely lost, but I was constantly working my way through this. Yeah. And it looked really good from the outside because survival is good for the rebuild. Yeah. But it's not. It looks like growth, but it's really not. I think in my talk I call it illusory growth. Yeah. So it's this illusion of. So people on the outside are like, you're getting props, but on the inside I'm just like, what? I am completely lost. I'm broken, and people keep telling me I'm so resilient. But,
yeah. You survived. You're a survivor.
I'm a survivor, and you keep rebuilding. I'm just going to keep rolling with this story because I feel like it fits here. So I struggle with this addiction, and things were just not going well. They were falling apart, but I had gained like 50 pounds, and this is not hitting the
Football
gym.
pounds.
This is not good. These are not good pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm really down in the dumps. My life I'm feeling like what's happening? But I started to go to the gym. I started to lose weight. Then I owned a little gym, and I worked at a cosmetics company running the wellness department. And I kind of worked my way back into life, and eventually I was the vice president there, and things were good. So I finally left that company to pursue a master's in mental health counseling because I thought I was getting really interested in resilience and mental health, and I thought it was. I don't know if this will sound selfish. I thought it was because I wanted to help other people. Yeah. Looking back at it, I'm realizing it was me desperate to try to diagnose what was happening in my own life and try to find some answers for myself. Yeah. I'm seeing patients, seeing clients, and I'm really struggling with my cognitive stuff from all the concussions. Yeah. So I drop out, and then this is where I really started to get interested in resilience. I had a back surgery, had a disc replacement, and then while I was doing rehab for that, a couple months later I fell and tore my shoulder up. So I had shoulder surgery. And then that was January. And then February.
And at this point, this is how many surgeries probably?
This was, the shoulder was my 14th, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm recovering from the shoulder, and I started to have chest pains.
Yeah.
Finally, I ignore them. Finally, I call the doctor, and within just about 6 weeks post-shoulder surgery, I'm back in the operating room. This time I'm having an open heart, a double bypass.
Holy cow.
This freak genetic thing.
Yeah.
So I'm literally lying on the table. There's a machine that's breathing for me, a machine that's pumping my blood, and I'm just like, what's going on? But I bounce back from that. 6 months later, I go to Lake Powell, and I'm wake surfing with some buddies, celebrating being alive, and my hamstring snaps off of my pelvis. So I have surgery 16. This is when, Bryan, the shift for me came. Because people now at this point are like, dude, it's so amazing. You're so resilient. You're so strong. And I'm thinking really like, I feel so broken mentally, emotionally, physically. And so I realized like something's missing. And so I started to do a deep dive on resilience. I read the books and podcasts and, reading research papers. And you've referenced these building blocks. So this is where this stuff started to emerge and where I started to see, oh, okay, what you're really good at, you've become a master survivor.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's not bad. Like you need that.
Fight or flight.
Yeah,
right?
I don't.
Instinctual.
Yeah, I'm a straight caveman mode. And so I don't. At first, I sort of diminished that state, but now I'm realizing no, that's critical. Like you have to survive things, but if you get stuck in that resilience 1.0 or that survival mode, you will literally fry your nervous system. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that a lot of really high achievers, that you hear about burnout, and this is what it is. Like you're literally, your physiology, you're burning out. Your nervous system can't keep up. You can't access the skills that made you great in the first place, and that what looks like growth and survival, it ultimately starts to become a detriment. And I think that's why you see so many high achievers, they turn to drastic measures as a solution to their problems. And that's when I realized that I'm stuck in this survival cycle. And I got to figure out what are the skills I need to get out of this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to some mental health experts over the years, and one of the things they talk about with that fight or flight is it's so like midbrain. It's so just that really instinctual, right? And so your brain can't, whether it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger back in the day, or you're going through your 16th surgery, it's the same response.
Yeah.
There's no cognitive feature around that. You can't actually reason, and when that is hyperactive all the time, to your point, I think a lot of people think that it's age or it's just this like maybe cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. But when you're in this space of constant trauma, which I mean, you've been through more surgeries than most human beings probably. Your body's just trying to survive getting through the next thing, or there's no way to actually take that step back, right, and say, now what? Yeah. Now how do I like actually function in the higher level, like consciousness?
Yeah, I think there's a term that I came across that I thought was really cool. It's called central sensitization. And it's this idea after whatever the trauma is, for me it was a lot of physical stuff and loss of identity, is that your nervous system starts to see sort of little things as these 5-alarm fires. And it freaking out. So I would get like a little, I recently, actually it was 2 days after I spoke to you guys, I had surgery on my foot. And it wasn't particularly a major surgery, but coming out of that, a few days into it, I was like, oh, it's happening. Like I'm going crazy again. Yeah. I started to feel it, and you have to take a deep breath and recognize, oh, my nervous system. I think once you get your chest cracked open, your body sort of freaks out at everything. And so for me, it's been this constant battle of like doing the somatic work. I was trying to solve all my problems in my brain. Yeah. Again, I think another thing that high achievers do, we want to think our way out of all these problems. Yeah. But it's when I started to use these really simple skill-based techniques in my own body that I could get to that first pillar, which is, nervous system regulation. Because you can have all the skills in the world. You can have, I had read I counted, I think, 73 self-help books.
Yeah.
But the problem was I had all this knowledge, but I couldn't access it because I was constantly running from this, saber-toothed tiger, so to speak. And so that's when that's kind of what led me to really start to see that the jump from survival mode to kind of thrive in growth mode, or resilience 2.0. It's when you can get your nervous system to a state where now you can start to learn skills, and now you're being intentional, you're being proactive, versus just putting out fires and reacting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us get stuck in firefighter mode.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're progressing.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly in that mode, you're not actually adapting and changing and growing.
Yeah, that's such a poignant point, I think, because it's there's somebody like you you have an injury, and they're common in especially your level of professional football. It's like, okay, we have this roadmap, right?
Yeah.
We have this roadmap to, you're going to start out, you're not going to be weight bearing, and then after a while you are, and then we're going to work you back in rehab, and then it's going to be weight training, then it's going to be conditioning, all those things. But nobody is really addressing the mental side of that. Like, how do you, okay, now your body's physically there, but what now? Like, you're not healed.
Right.
So what and I know that you've done some really interesting, I would say, kind of crazy stuff to kind of get your nervous system under control. But what talk to our listeners about how they get there. Like, what does that look like now? How do you get from that resilience 1.0 of survival to that 2.0, that growth stage?
Yeah. Okay, think of it like this, just as a good analogy. Think of a drawbridge, and you have resilience 1.0 on this side of the bridge and 2.0 on this side, and the bridge is open. And it's going to stay open until you can regulate your nervous system. So number one thing that I was missing is you got to get the physiology under control. You got to address the things that we've adapted for however many hundreds of thousands of years as modern humans. You got to figure out how to get that drawbridge down so you can access the skills. And then once you access the skills, I think there are some really concrete things that I found that are super helpful. One of them, the big one for me, was how to approach challenges with intention.
Okay.
So you're not in a reactive mode, but now you're like, okay, I'm gonna insert myself into these challenging things with purpose, with meaning, with other people, so you can start getting some wins. I was desperate to have some victories, so I started doing like things. This will sound strange. I started doing things like I signed up for a improv comedy acting course, like an 8-week course. Now, the reason I signed up for that was because nothing sounds more horrible than that. I can't imagine. And it was actually my teenage daughter. She was like, "Will you do a course with me?" And I was like, "No." And then I finally consented. I got approval from the instructors, because it was an adult class, to let her in. Yeah. And then she's like, "Well, I don't want to do it with a bunch of adults." And so I thought, "Oh, this is amazing. I'm out of it." And then something in my head was like, "Bro, go do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, go do it." And you want to talk about terrifying, is you've got to get up in front of people and be funny.
Yeah.
And the reality is, most of the time, it's not funny, and it's crickets in there. But you got to just keep going. So I know it doesn't sound like something that you would address major problems, but for me, it was leaning into something that I was terrified of, and then going and actually bombing. Yeah. And then once in a while, you would say something funny, and people would laugh, and then you'd be like, "Wait a minute." I bombed 3 times, and then I got a laugh. Yeah. And here's the reality, like, that's life. Yeah. You bomb. Yeah. You bomb far more in life than you actually, get a laugh. So I did that. I did a blacksmithing course, which taught me a ton about, this process of literally of taking something. And I love the analogy. You take the metal, this raw metal, which kind of represents you stick it in this extreme heat, which is the adversity. Yeah. And the metal only becomes workable once it's been heated to a certain level. But you can't leave it in too long. Yeah. And you got to leave it in just right. And so that's sort of like life. You need to push yourself. Yeah. But you got to also know when to pull back. You know, deliberate recovery is another massive part of resilience. Again, high achievers, not good at recovery.
Yeah, it's almost a badge of honor, right? To say,
it is.
I've been from bell to bell in our industry, or I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years.
No. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah,
you know? And I fell into that trap too. A lot of us do. So. Yeah. So.
Well, let me ask you. I have a question on the improv class. Yeah. What's actually scarier, being up in front of a group of adults and doing improv and like because like that to me is terrifying, or having Peyton Manning really pissed off at you at a locker room? Like what is more terrifying?
The improv for sure. Yeah.
Because I've seen there's this classic thing with Peyton and Jeff Saturday, and they're good friends, and he is just going at him. And I'm like, all right, this guy is like, he's intense.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the improv was for sure hard.
Okay.
I never got the wrath of Peyton. I saw other people get it. So I don't think I got to experience that, but
that's
for sure the improv.
I know that you've done some really unique things too as well. With you have, I think it was pretty recently, you've done. Is it Sisu?
Yeah. So,
can you explain to our listeners, because I think that there's some really kind of radical things out there, and whether it's the Menhoff method or things like where you are trying to regulate from this outside. This is such a cool concept, and maybe it's because of my Scandinavian roots. Yeah. But talk about that experience?
Yeah. So I got into a cold exposure and doing a lot of sauna stuff because I was really like, this is good for my nervous system, and breath work, and I loved breath work. I started. It really was helping me, and this idea of intentionally exposure to challenge. So one day I'm on ChatGPT, and I knew about this Finnish concept called Sisu, and it's a really uniquely cultural concept in Finland. It's sort of born out of the fact that like food doesn't really grow there. It's long,
it's cold
harsh
all
winters.
The time.
These constant battles with Imperial Russia throughout these years, and their battles for independence, and it essentially is extreme determination. But what I love about it is it's determination. And it's a willingness to take action in the face of almost certain failure.
Yeah.
So it's like you go for something even though you know you're not going to do it. So I got on ChatGPT. I was researching this term, and I wrote, I want to learn about Sisu. I want to learn about it in Finland, and I want to learn about it in harsh conditions. And it spit me back all these things. Anyway, a few days later, I'm on the phone with these Dutch one guy was a current special forces trainer. He trained like their Arctic survival teams. The other guy was an ex Dutch Navy guy that did Wim Hof breath work, cold exposure, and acceptance and commitment therapy. And they did a breath work and survival skills retreat in northern Finland, right on the southern border of the Arctic Circle, about 5-10 miles from the Russian border, at this eco hotel. And so like 3 weeks after doing that ChatGPT, I'm touching down in Helsinki, and then I'm taking this little puddle jumper way up north, and now here I am with all these Dutch people. Yeah. The woman that owned the eco hotel, she was Dutch, so that's the connection to. And I'm out there on day one chopping firewood and have this huge 6-foot ice saw sawing a hole in the ice so that when everyone else gets there the next day, we can do our cold exposure. And I spent, 10 days in Finland standing on beds of nails and doing breath work. And then, it was cool because we would go in, we would do some intention, do some writing, some really inward facing stuff.
Yeah.
As a group, some mindfulness type of practices, some breath work. And then Jeroen, he was the breath work guy, he would say, okay, we're going to turn it over to Max. And Max, by the way, just a few months before that, Max and Jeroen were part of a team that had set the Dutch record for climbing Kilimanjaro, 20 hours. Oh, wow. They climbed it. I think it normally takes 3 days to do it. So these guys aren't messing around, right? So within 24 hours of getting there, and my back is sore from chopping wood and cutting holes in the ice and a wheel bearing. I'm like, what have I done? Like, why would anyone come to do this? But we would do this morning stuff, and then Jeroen would turn over to Max, and Max would teach us how to pack our survival gear. And then he would say, okay, you have 30 minutes to go to your rooms. pack your bags, and we're going to meet outside, and we're going to go for a hike in the taiga forest. This is the boreal forest. And here's the catch. You can only wear shoes, socks, and shorts. Now, it's Finland. This is December. This is 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I just got back early December of this year. And so you would go out, and you would be basically naked. And it's snowing, and it's cold, and they're giving you weights to carry, or they'll have you hold onto a snowball, and you're not allowed to talk to the group. And then we would get out there, and they would stop, and they would say, okay, you guys can talk now. We're not helping. You got to find your way back. So talk amongst yourself, figure it out. So then we would come back, and then they would cook us this crazy meal.
Yeah.
And we'd sit by the fire, and we'd do the sauna, and we'd talk, and we'd share experiences.
Yeah.
So it was this idea of you're getting pushed to the edge of your limit, but then you're pulling back into some recovery and community and purpose. And so for me, that was a huge moment of, okay, the idea isn't to wear yourself out and to crush yourself. The idea is to go to the edge, to get a sense for it, to get a taste of it, and then to get pulled back in and recover. So that was a crazy experience. The most interesting part was I think I cried every night.
Yeah.
I would go back to my room and just cry because I was the only native English speaker, and they all spoke English, but when there's 14 Dutch people and they just would forget that I was there.
Yeah.
So it felt very lonely.
Yeah.
But then I would go out the next day and I would have some kind of really cool one-on-one connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And so I started to learn like, oh, okay, not only do I need to learn how to not push past the limit, how to pull back, but I need to learn how to do it with other people, with the community.
Yeah.
Because I had spent, again, survival mode usually doesn't look like a group of you and your buddies and your friends like survival mode together. It looks like you isolating in your room. For me, it was, using, abusing substances. Yeah. For high achievers, that's isolation. They want to go it alone. We don't ask for help. So I was learning, I started to just inject myself into these different situations, and I was kind of learning, I guess, on the job. Yeah. So that was my Finland, wild. Yeah. Wild. I want to go back. Yeah. I fell in love with the place and with the people, and, it was a magical place where it's harsh. Yeah. The Eco Hotel was heated by this 10,000-liter tank and this massive furnace. And my job I got assigned was to chop the wood and to fill the furnace 3 times a day.
Oh, wow.
And Sisu is really about the notion that if you don't fill up the furnace, you freeze.
Yeah.
If you don't find food, you starve.
Yeah.
And so it's a good mix. Resilience is a good mix of Sisu, which I think is under the umbrella of resilience, but also harmful Sisu is when you don't recover.
Yeah.
So that's the Sisu. That's my Sisu.
It's so crazy how that really just encapsulates everything that you've been talking about, right? You've been searching kind of your whole life for you were thrust into this survival mode, unfortunately for you, and your injuries and just all of the things that you had to overcome just to even make it out. A lot of people give you a lot of credit, Rob, because a lot of people don't. I think that there is something to be said for. I think that's why people look at somebody like you that's been such a high achiever and achieved so much in ways that most of us will never be able to. Just the fact that you're there means something, right? Yeah. But I love your kind of vision of this is like, it's not just good enough anymore to get through it. That's not really what I want out of life. I want to grow and be this from the mental side to not just a survivor. Like my story is more than just, I've been through 17, 18 surgeries now. It's what do we do and how do we really grow and create this sense of community of people who my story might actually resonate with, and I think that's Sisu and just everything that you were just saying. It's like push you to your absolute extreme, which you experienced through your life and the injuries and all that, to then like we're gonna come back and we're gonna have this meal in this community and we're gonna talk about or write our feelings, or we're gonna have this emotional response. I think that's the piece that, especially in our modern culture, in the Western side, it's all about your success is really determined on what car do you have, what watch are you wearing, what suit do you have, what's your bank account say, what does it look like to everybody else, and that's where we stop. Yeah. And that's only like the first part of the equation. So I I love that story. And Rob, I want to, I'm going to take just a minute here because I do have some football questions for you to ask. But you've been through so much, and really kind of a Renaissance person, and I respect you even more, hearing more and more about your story. You could have easily just been an athlete in the past, right? A lot of ex-athletes who do a lot of great things and talk to people. You really took it upon yourself to then go and learn about it and understand that. Now you're really applying it in these, whether it's Sisu or the stuff you talk about in your pillars. What do you hope that this next, or maybe it is just a stand-up comedian. Maybe the improv is really going to take off.
That's not going to happen.
What is it that you hope like in the next 10 years for Rob Morris looks like?
Man, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure I have an answer to that.
Yeah.
Which I think might be good for me, because what I'm doing now is I'm sort of just chasing down leads.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part of losing the identity, it's finding what the new one is. And I'm realizing now, I get to decide.
Yeah.
It can be flexible, and it can be a lot of different things. And the I think is the coolest thing about what I'm doing now is, trust me, I am not cured of my I am on the path. I mean, my last, this trip to Finland, that was three months ago.
Yeah.
And so I love doing this because I can talk from a place of, hey, this is what I'm doing. Come try it out with me.
Yeah.
I think my framework is accurate, and I think that it works. But I was, talking to you earlier, even since I spoke to you guys just over a month ago, I've made changes to this framework because, I had this foot surgery afterward, and I started to rethink some of my thoughts on resilience.
Yeah.
So I think my vision for myself is to try new stuff. I enjoy doing the speaking. I enjoy presenting in corporate, but I think that's a bit of a side hustle.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you or any of the listeners out there have any ideas for my full time, but I just want to, look, I have some objectives on my whiteboard, and it's like, give a meaning and a voice to my personal experiences.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone else can benefit from them. Make more money than I spend, which right now I'm failing miserably at. So my goals and dreams are pretty simple.
Yeah.
I'd like to be in a relationship at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That sounds maybe like a low bar, but I think there was a point in my life where I hit the high bar.
Yeah.
Like the highest you could achieve in your career, and was miserable.
Yeah.
And hated myself.
Yeah.
And so it's like, would I like to get back on top of some, would I like to be a great speaker? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let that derail me.
Why you'll hit that is you're just authentic. You're so authentic who you are, and I think that resonates with people, knowing that maybe you don't have all the answers, and maybe it's not just the Rob Morris show. Maybe it is about going through this experience, and that shared experience is actually really beautiful to share and to get out there and get that story out. And I can't thank you enough for being so open and vulnerable and just honest with your experience. And you've had such a crazy college and pro career. You've been around so many Hall of Famers. One of my favorite Utes, Steve Smith. You guys had played against each other at Utah BYU when he was there. In fact, I think he was. It was the same game at '99, which I think was your last year. Was that your last year?
Yeah.
Where there's this famous. He goes back in Utah lore, but there was a BYU fan. One of our guy cheerleaders running around the stadium with the Utah flag celebrating because it was a 34-31 win, which was like 34-31 is either a nightmare or you're happy depending on what year it was. It was like every game was, but the fan had jumped out of the stadium and tackled our cheerleader, and then the cheerleader proceeded to beat the hell out of him. And so but you've been around Steve Smith, who's very outspoken and one of my favorite Utes. You've been around Peyton Manning. You have a story, I think, with Tom Brady. Is that right? I'd love to know maybe what's one of your favorite stories or highlights of your professional or college career that, maybe just a little bit behind the scenes with some of these people that we only see on TV.
Well, I don't know if it's a highlight, but I'll tell you about Tom Brady. In my second year in the league, we were playing the Patriots, and their starting quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, had just got taken out by the Jets linebacker Mo Lewis, ruptured his spleen or something. And so our D coordinator, Vic Fangio, he's given the sort of the weekly. So you have there's tons of meetings. I think people don't realize how many meetings there are, film study and strategy, and there's, the analytics. You would get sheets of paper, and you'd have to learn okay, when it's like, what are the probabilities of which plays they'll run in which situation? So if it's 3rd down and 2 and they have this personnel on the field and they're in this formation, 94% of the time they do X. And so you learn their different. And so then you get like a personnel report, and Vic would go through each player and talk about them. And he got to Tom Brady, and he's the quarterback, and nobody knew who he was. He was a late pick, and he was like, I think this guy is a talented guy. We should be ready. And we're like, come on, this guy's a nobody. We got this guy. And they came and they played us. So I played against Tom in his first start.
Oh.
And they crushed us. And they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. And so the rest is history. So let's be honest. We hate Tom Brady. We hate his hair. We hate his life. And we hate the fact that I would have 5 Super Bowl rings instead of 1 Super Bowl ring if there was no Tom Brady. But
that's awesome. Well, this sounds like a loaded question then, because you played with Peyton, but who's truly the GOAT?
I can't answer that question. Look, you can't. It's hard to argue that Tom Brady isn't the GOAT because he has so many championships.
Yeah.
But it's also like there's so many good. Peyton was so great, but he just also happened to be in the same era as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And so it's like they took us out of the playoffs, I think, 3 or 4 times. We played him in the AFC Championship and lost. This was one of the great stories of my career is when we played him this year. We won the Super Bowl. I had just become a starter again as the outside linebacker. We're playing the Patriots at home in the AFC Championship game. This is our nemesis that had kept us out. And they get out. They get ahead 21-3 at halftime, and we're panicking. No team has ever come back from that deficit at this point in AFC Championship history. And Tony at halftime just very calmly lays out the plan. This is how we get back. We get a stop, we score, and he just very calmly did it. And then in the second half, that's exactly what happened. We just kind of calmly came back.
Yeah.
And then, Tom Brady has the ball with 40 seconds left, and they're driving, and it's like, oh no, please, this is not happening to us. And then Marlon Jackson gets an interception. The RCA Dome is the loudest I've ever heard. Explodes, and we were going to the Super Bowl. To me, I think to a lot of us, that was the biggest point in our career.
Wow.
Winning the Super Bowl was more like a relief. Thank goodness we made it here. Beating Tom Brady in the AFC Championship, that was like the real celebration, And so that was one of the coolest experiences ever, because the crowd. It was it was the old stadium.
Yeah.
It was tiny, but it was packed, and it was and all my family was there. My dad, my parents were there.
So to see you at that stage and be able to and
and
now
then you're like,
back,
we're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then I go home and I see that the Bears have won, and John's my best friend, college roommate. He's playing left tackle for the Bears. So now we're playing against each other in the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah,
and not just against
you guys are
against each other.
Did it take you back to college days?
A little bit, yeah. I try not to. Well, I do. I rub it in quite a bit because we see each other quite a bit. But apparently, losing a Super Bowl is just as awful as an experience as you would think.
Now, I've got to ask about the Holy War college experience. Do you have any friends that are ex-Utah football players, or is it still kind of? Because back then, I think now it's been more. I think there is there's definitely a camaraderie between Lavelle and McBride, and then for a while there wasn't with the BYU coaches that we don't talk about, and then with Coach Witt, Kalani Sitake, who's a fantastic coach, and we were really sad to lose him, and actually sad to lose Witt if we're being honest. But back in your playing days, it was pretty vicious, I think.
Yeah, and that was when Utah was getting a little better. I mean,
Yeah.
they had, and look, I love Ron McBride.
Yeah.
I saw him maybe 6 months ago or
yeah.
a year ago or something. And every time I see that guy, it's just, we smile and have a few laughs. But I think I was 2-2 against Utah, which that was like really disappointing, man. Because they're like the redheaded stepchild for us. We didn't really like, and that's when Utah started to reemerge. So in some ways, I sort of hate it. I hate that they've become good, but I also think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I love now that BYU is getting back.
Yeah.
And Kalani's like one of my best buddies. We
really?
We played with each other.
Oh, yeah.
He was a fullback, I was linebacker,
that's
so
right,
we were constantly on the field. We were
can't
constantly
imagine that guy hitting
scrapping and
into you.
fighting, and then off the field, we were buddies, and so I love that rivalry.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we're winning again, and I hope
sure
that
has made
continues.
it fun to have it, more parity, and I do think like just the overall, it's nice when you have one team that's been so terrible, and Utah was that for a long time. I think it's easy for the fan base to get so terrible to each other because you're just so either you're really smug, which I've been on the other side of it. There was almost 10 years, and you're like, okay, we're gonna win this. And then the other side is like, we just want to win something, but it has been fun. It's also fun to see a lot of those, whether it's the coaching staff or whatever. There's just like, you were actually recruited to Utah, I think.
Yeah. I took a trip there with Coach McBride, and I think I committed to play everywhere. I went to Stanford and with Bill Walsh, and
oh yeah,
I remember sitting across the table from him. My dad was there. I desperately wanted to go. This is Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if you're going to offer me a scholarship, when would it be? And I think he was taken aback. I didn't realize that it was sort of a given.
Oh.
And he said, well, how about now? And I shook his hand. I said, I'm coming. And then, Lavelle called me, and then I was like, I'm coming to BYU. I think I had commitment issues back then, but it turned out okay.
Yeah. Rob, it's been great having you on. We've obviously enjoyed having you on to talk about this resiliency mindset. We look forward to having you on, hopefully in future episodes.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come.
Especially as you keep defining what this looks like and refining, your story. And I hope that from, just a friend perspective, that the survival side is through. And it's the growth in that, you're in that side. I think that if you get to 20, they just give you they actually name the hospital wing after you.
I got a punch card. I just had 17. They said my 18th surgery will be free. So
finally. Yeah.
Pretty excited about that. Whenever I go in to have a doctor's appointment and it says list all your previous surgeries, I've just stopped doing it. I just leave it blank.
You're like, here's the latest one.
I'm not writing this. If they want to ask me about them, I'll tell them.
Well, I hope that it'll be great to follow just kind of where you where this speaking goes, and just really sharing that mindset. There's a lot that I want to apply, and I would love to one of these days get out and maybe we can get Steve to do one of these Sisu events. I think that would be really fun for him to. Yeah.
Do it. We design some kind of cool corporate challenge.
That would be we could. Yeah, I would love that. But on the serious side, if this has resonated with any of our listeners, which I don't know how it wouldn't, how do they get in touch with you? How do you talk about that community? How do they build a community with you? Yeah, so I have a website. I have a new one being built. So the one they'll go to right now is kind of old, but it's robmorriscoaching.com. My Instagram's robmorris 2.0, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just shoot me a message. Yeah. Or shoot me an email, rob@robmorriscoaching. I love having conversations, and it's just fun because I don't have any of the answer. But you know what I'm realizing? I think, Bryan, I'm not sure that what we need is to find answers. I think we need to dig around the questions a little bit more. So I'm asking different questions now than I was before. Instead of, how do I find success in life? It's like, how do I find meaning in life? And purpose. And actually, let me rephrase that. It's not how do I find meaning. It's how do I create meaning. And for me, it's becoming a mad scientist. It's trying new things. It's being parts of new communities. I love to travel. So it's, I think Finland was my 31st country. I love to go and experience those things. So, yeah. Yeah, if anybody out there, if you send me, maybe we'll have to try the Sisu, and I'll try to get back to my Scandinavian roots a little bit. It sounds terrifying, and I'm not quite mentally prepared. I don't think strong enough. I need to get through that first part, that survival part.
I think you'd be surprised. Yeah.
I tried to do the cold plunge, and I mean I can handle it, but I got like 2 minutes in. That's about as far as I can get.
It's funny. It's because the cold plunge it's this purely physiological thing that's driven by just a simple ability to breathe.
Yeah.
Like once I learned how to breathe, I could hop in there for whatever.
Really?
Yeah. But and it's like life. People get in the cold plunge and they hyperventilate, and it's the same as life. You get into some kind of chaotic moment and we start to freak out. That's our nervous system going crazy. And it's like you need to get into this cold, and you need to expose yourself to challenge and take a deep breath and recognize, oh, wait, this is cold water.
Yeah.
It's not like, think about that. We're getting into cold water. It's not lava. You're not getting into you're not exposing yourself to poisonous gases. You're not jumping into a vat of acid. It's just cold water. And so when you can start to wrap your mind around that, and that's helped me in life of because I would bump into these things, and it would feel like life-threatening.
Yeah.
And then I would have to step back and go, dude, calm down.
Yeah.
It's foot surgery. Like in 6 weeks, you'll be back. You'll be okay.
You've had open heart surgery. This is nothing.
Yeah.
Rob, it's been, hopefully we can have you on again. We want to definitely keep following your career. You're such an inspiration to, it's been great even having our people who've heard you speak come back weeks after and mention stuff about your speech and how
that's amazing.
And I think a lot of times, especially in our industry, you always get the rah cheerleader, and you feel like, okay, I'm just like in football, right? Where you get that coach who's like fiery, and you're like, okay, I'll run through a wall. But after that emotion is gone, it's like, okay, what really resonated there? What meaning, what changed? And I want you to know that your experience has changed the way that I look at life, and the way that people that I have heard you speak really are. They're applying it. So, can't
cool.
thank you
That's
enough.
awesome.
Please check out Rob. Check him out on his website. Follow him on Instagram. We'll release this obviously on YouTube. There's a lot of, you've been a guest on a number of podcasts. You're always fantastic. So, and the thing I love about it, we talked about it, but I love that you're always evolving and always trying to figure out better ways and more unique things that might apply for people. So it's always great to have you on. So I really appreciate.
I'm glad to be here. I was going to say it's been fun evolving, but it's not always. Fun. It's fun when you see the light at the end of the tunnel sometimes. So those are the moments I look forward to.
Rob is also doing a headline for the Amateur Hour at the Wise Guys Comedy Club in West Valley. I think it's coming up here in the next week or two. So check him out there, Rob Morris.
My goal is to get one laugh during the set.
Well, thanks, Rob. Thanks so much for being a guest.
I
really appreciate you.
AlphaTalk is an Alpha Warranty Services production. Learn more at alphawarranty.com.